Good evening. Why buy? Is it a good time to buy your first property? As you're aware, there is a lot going on at the moment, and people are saying, should I buy my first property? I would like to explain 3 reasons why it's a good time to buy and 3 reasons why it's a bad time to buy. Hi, my name's Manda Walker. I'm a mortgage advisor, a financial coach, an accountant, and a property investor myself. My channel is called Mortgages and Money Matters because I really do believe mortgages and money do matter. Now, why is it a bad time to buy? Well, interest rates. Interest rates at the moment are higher than they have been for many, many years. As you may be aware, a couple of years ago, especially during COVID, interest rates went down to an all-time low. In fact, they were less than 1% depending on the LTV, which is the loan to value. Loan to value is how much your deposit is. So depending on how much deposit you put and how much you borrow, that works out your loan to value. I do have a video on my channel that explains that in a lot more detail. Now, that's one of the reasons why not to buy right now. Another reason is a lot of people, especially landlords, are selling up at the moment, which means supply is a lot bigger than demand. A lot of people are shying away from buying properties, which means demand has decreased, but a lot of people can't afford to buy right now, so or afford their mortgages right now, so we're trying to sell. So when supply gets bigger than demand, it means that property prices tend to go up. So not only is the mortgage costing you more because of interest rates, but the actual cost of a property is more because there's a higher demand. So that's the second reason. The third reason is the credit crunch. Not only are properties increasing, but because of inflation, other things are more expensive. So your utilities, council tax is more expensive, groceries, food, a lot of things are a lot more expensive, which means in comparison to how much your salary may have increased. So because of that, it means that it's a lot more expensive to buy a property. So those are the 3 things that could stop you from buying a property. Now, when you say, is it the right time to buy? 3 positive things for buying are, the first thing, if you can already afford the mortgage at the higher rate that it currently is, if you've worked it out and you can still afford that, then the chances are the interest rates are only going to go down. So if you can afford it now, you can buy it now, and then when you remortgage several years later, you will actually be paying less on that mortgage payment. So if you can afford it now, why not buy it now? The next thing I would say is property prices. If property prices have gone up, as I said, but in some areas, property prices are lower. You've got a lot of landlords that want to sell their properties quickly because they can't afford to remortgage, and you could get a bargain. If you are able to secure a mortgage quickly, if you have all your deposit and everything pulled together, and again, I've got a video on what you actually need in order to be mortgage ready, then you can sort of go looking, and if you find a bargain and you can move quickly, then it's great. That's something you should go for. And then the third reason is, if you find a property that needs work, then you will automatically increase the value of the property once you've purchased it and you do work on it. So if you are a tradesperson or you've got family members who are trades and you can get work done on a property relatively cheaply, then it is a really good idea to buy. I mean, me personally, when I bought this house, it was the worst on the road. And what we did was we bought it for a decent price because it was in a great location and it was ideal for us because we wanted our kids to go to school in a really good area. But the actual house really needed doing up. So we spent the money that way. So we spent less on the property initially, and then over the years we've been doing it up, so it's now worth a lot more. So based on that, you really need to decide, you know, what type of person are you? Are you the type of person that's going to take take the plunge and buy the property now, or are you going to wait? But what I would say is, if you decide that you're the type of person that wants to wait till the interest rates go down, which is completely understandable, don't lay idle. Now, what I mean by that is there's several things that you can do while you're waiting. Now, the first thing I'd say is carry on saving for a deposit and save as much of a deposit as you can. As I mentioned, the loan to value, the more deposit you put down is the less you need to borrow, for obvious reasons. Look at the deposit and the brackets of interest rates. For example, you know, interest rates could be 5% deposit and then 95% borrowing, or they could be a 10% deposit with 90% borrowing, 15% deposit, 85% borrowing. So depending on that will determine what the interest rate bracket is. So if you can save a little bit more of a deposit, then it will help in that way. But please bear in mind if you are planning to do refurbishments, because by doing that you do need to set aside some money in contingency. Other costs that you also need to consider are for surveys and also for solicitors. So there are other fees that you have to be aware of that you also need to start saving on. So that's one thing I would say while you're waiting for interest rates to go down to find the right property, then do save. Put aside as much money as you can for these different things. The next thing I would say is do your research. Be aware of all the areas that you're interested in, how much the properties are, and keep an eye on it and keep on looking. The next thing I'd say is make sure that you've got a mortgage advisor that you feel comfortable with, and let them keep an eye on the interest rates for you. And if a lender, for instance, does a lower rate for one day because, you know, they're trying to get their sales up, maybe at the end of the month they haven't done as many mortgages as they need to, so they need to make sure they've done a certain amount of mortgages by the end of the month. If you've got a mortgage advisor, they'd be able to tell you which lender is doing a better rate, even if it's just for a day. So that's another thing to be aware of. Use that mortgage advisor or do your own research and really understand how mortgages work. I've got several videos on mortgages and money matters that explain different types of whether it's variable rate or fixed rate mortgage, you know, different types of deposits, whether it's interest only or capital repayment, all those kind of information. Make sure you understand how mortgages work. And the last thing I'd say is credit. Now, they will be interested, I'd like to say mortgage advisors and then the actual end lender will be interested in how good your credit is. So one, be careful with your credit. So don't get a car when you're planning to buy your property in 6 months or a year or anything like that. Get a car on HP, anything like that. So try not to overextend yourself on credit. But if you have no credit, get yourself a credit card, pay it off in full every month and build up that credit. So while you're waiting, make sure you do your mortgage preparation. So that's understanding how the whole thing works, building up your credit, and then saving for a deposit and additional fees. If you've got any questions, please put a comment in the chat and I will be more than happy to answer them. If you'd like me to do other videos to explain any of this or anything else around mortgages and money matters in more detail, by all means do a comment. If you'd like to see more videos, by all means subscribe and like and set the notification bell, and then that way when a new video comes out you'll be aware of it. Thanks for your time and good evening.